The psychology of psychopaths, unmasking hidden evil and power. What if the most dangerous predators don't lurk in the shadows but sit across from you, at work, lead your country, or even lie beside you in bed? In this deeply psychological exploration, we peel back the carefully constructed masks of modern-day psychopaths. Those who walk, speak, and smile like anyone else, but operate with chilling emotional emptiness. You'll learn why their charm is often their deadliest weapon, how power fuels their sense of superiority, and why their words, though polished, ring hollow. But more importantly, this video is not just about them. It's about you. What makes you vulnerable to manipulation? What parts of yourself long to be seen so deeply that you overlook danger? Join us in this journey through shadow, silence, and truth, not just to understand the psychopath, but to awaken something deeper in yourself. Awareness, boundaries, and healing. Watch until the end. Your clarity may depend on it. Predatory instinct behind the human face. Human society is built on the assumption that people, despite their flaws, are fundamentally capable of empathy, guilt, and moral responsibility. But what if some among us were born without these basic qualities? What if they wore the mask of humanity, not to connect but to hunt? These individuals do not lurk in shadows or prisons. They walk among us, in offices, in relationships, in positions of power. They smile, speak eloquently, and mirror emotions they do not feel. And yet, beneath the surface, something essential is missing. These are not monsters from fiction. They are real. Known in psychology as psychopaths, they represent a small percentage of the population, but their impact is vastly disproportionate. They charm, deceive, and manipulate with surgical precision, not out of desperation, but as a way of life. Their ability to blend in is their most dangerous trait. They can look into your eyes with warmth and speak of love, while secretly calculating how to exploit you. Understanding them is not just about protection. It is a mirror that forces us to look inward. Why do we trust so easily? What wounds within us respond to their manipulation? In exploring their nature, we are also invited to explore the vulnerabilities inside ourselves. The need to be seen, to be loved, to be wanted, that when unmet can leave us exposed to predators in human form. To heal, we must first awaken. Recognizing the predator is the first step, but recognizing the unhealed spaces within us they prey upon is the path to transformation. Only then can we begin to reclaim our strength, our clarity, and our sense of self. In that awareness, the predator loses power. In our awakening, we become whole again. When the beast sits in power, most people imagine psychopaths as violent criminals, serial killers, or deranged outcasts. But this image, while dramatic, is misleading. The truth is far more subtle and far more dangerous. The psychopath who physically harms others may be easy to condemn, but the one who operates quietly within the systems of power can wreak even greater havoc, while appearing entirely respectable. Studies show that psychopaths are overrepresented in leadership positions, particularly in corporate, financial, and political spheres. Their charm, confidence, and lack of fear iron allow them to rise quickly. They are often seen as bold, decisive, and visionary, qualities that the modern world mistakenly rewards without always checking the conscience behind the charisma. In truth, they seek power not to serve but to control, not to build but to dominate. The modern world, with its increasing complexity and centralization, provides fertile ground for the psychopath to thrive. In environments where empathy is seen as weakness and results are valued above integrity, they can move through the ranks unnoticed. They know how to play the game. They say the right things, make powerful allies, and manipulate systems to their advantage. What makes them truly dangerous is not just their lack of empathy, but their ability to mimic moral language. They can speak of justice, fairness, and progress while working only to serve themselves. Their words can stir hope while their actions erode trust. This is not leadership. It is parasitism at scale, dressed in a suit and armed with a smile. Recognizing this dynamic invites us to rethink what power should look like. It challenges us to examine why we are drawn to charisma over character, control over compassion. And perhaps most importantly, it calls us to awaken to our responsibility, not just to choose better leaders, but to become more conscious participants in the systems we inhabit. When the beast wears a crown, it is not enough to be shocked. We must understand why we allowed it to happen, and we must begin patiently and courageously to choose another path. The emptiness of a cold soul. To understand the psychopath is to confront a kind of emptiness that is difficult for most people to imagine. They do not experience love, guilt, or empathy in the way the rest of us do. Their inner world is barren, stripped of the emotional connections that give life meaning. While they may simulate affection or concern, it is merely a performance crafted to achieve their ends. There is no warmth behind the words, no genuine care behind the gestures. What appears to be human is, in essence, a carefully constructed illusion. This absence of emotional depth allows the psychopath to commit acts that most people would find unthinkable. They can betray, deceive, and even destroy others without a flicker of remorse. If someone close to them suffers, it does not pierce their conscience. If they are confronted with the pain they have caused, they often respond with cold indifference or calculated justification. It is not that they are unaware of suffering. It is that they simply do not care. Their relationships are transactional. People are tools, resources, or stepping stones. If they express love, it is strategic. If they offer comfort, it is to maintain control. They may mimic the language of intimacy, but their words are hollow. The silence inside them is not peaceful, it is predatory. And yet this confrontation with emotional emptiness invites something deeper. For those who have been close to a psychopath, the experience can be shattering. But within that shattering lies a truth. We are reminded of the sacredness of real emotion, of true connection. We are called to cherish the capacity to feel, to care, to suffer with others. What the psychopath lacks becomes a mirror to what we hold most dear. The pain of being used or deceived by someone without conscience can lead to despair, but it can also lead to awakening. It can teach us to value emotional honesty, to set stronger boundaries, and to honor our vulnerability, not as weakness, but as proof of our humanity. In seeing what they cannot feel, we are reminded of what it means to be fully alive. Lost in the addiction to power. Power holds a magnetic pull for the psychopath. Unlike those who seek leadership as a path to serve or create, the psychopath is drawn to power for its own sake. It is not about vision, purpose, or progress. It is about control, about bending others to their will, about feeling untouchable. Power feeds the void where empathy should reside. It becomes the drug that replaces emotional connection. This obsession with control is not always loud or violent. Often it is quiet, subtle, and insidious. A psychopath may not raise their voice, but they will tighten their grip in invisible ways. They manipulate with compliments, with silence, with guilt. They study your weaknesses not to understand you, but to weaponize what they find. Their hunger for power does not come from ambition, but from a deep inner absence. Power becomes the only way they can feel real. In personal relationships, this shows up as domination, masked as love. In workplaces, as ambition that destroys trust. In politics, as charm, disguising a thirst for total authority. The patterns repeat regardless of context. The psychopath does not build connection. They build systems of control. And once power is achieved, it is never enough. They crave more. They will cross ethical lines, betray allies, and rewrite reality to maintain their dominance. This endless need for control can leave a trail of broken people behind. Yet the damage is not always visible. It lives in the silence of those who doubt themselves, in the anxiety of those who cannot explain why they feel watched, diminished, or afraid. The impact is psychological erosion, slow, subtle, but deeply real. And yet the presence of such hunger offers a contrast. When we see what power means to them, we are called to reflect on what power should mean to us. Not dominance, but responsibility. Not control, but care. To those who have been caught in the web of someone addicted to power, healing begins with reclaiming your sense of agency, with remembering that your value does not depend on how useful you are to someone else's agenda. In that remembering, the spell begins to break. Arrogant, emotionless, and beyond redemption. The psychopath often moves through life with an air of superiority that can be difficult to challenge. They see themselves not as flawed or in need of healing, but as evolved. In their eyes, emotions are weaknesses, empathy is a defect, and guilt is a chain meant for lesser beings. They do not hide this belief entirely. Sometimes they speak openly about how others are foolish for feeling too much or for being bound by morality. What we consider human, they often view as naive. This deep-rooted arrogance is part of what makes the psychopath resistant to change. Unlike those who suffer and seek help, they do not feel broken. In fact, they may view their emotional detachment as an advantage, a kind of psychological upgrade that places them above others. Traditional therapy, which relies on self-awareness and the desire to change, is often useless in these cases. Without remorse, without empathy, and without any sense of responsibility, there is no foundation upon which to build healing. Attempts to treat or rehabilitate psychopaths frequently fail. Many professionals in psychology agree that no known therapy has consistently worked. The issue is not just a lack of tools, but a lack of willingness. The psychopath sees no reason to change. They do not believe they are the problem. Often they believe they are the solution. This creates a difficult paradox. How do you help someone who does not want to be helped? How do you reach someone who feels no need to reach back? The answer may lie not in trying to fix them, but in understanding the limits of our power to change others. Healing then becomes less about them and more about us. about knowing when to let go, when to protect ourselves, and when to stop hoping for a transformation that will never come. Recognizing the unchangeable nature of some individuals is not an act of judgment. It is an act of maturity. It teaches us that boundaries are necessary, that hope must be rooted in reality, and that not every soul is ready or willing to walk the path of healing. Sometimes the most compassionate choice is to walk away. Ordinary mask, a deadly disguise. One of the most unsettling traits of the psychopath is how ordinary they often appear. Far from the chaotic madman or visibly dangerous criminal, many psychopaths are calm, composed, and even charming. They present themselves as intelligent, capable, and socially skilled. This mask of normalcy is not accidental. It is a carefully cultivated disguise designed to gain trust and deflect suspicion. This illusion is what makes them so difficult to identify. They know how to mimic emotional expressions even if they feel nothing. They know when to smile, when to comfort, and when to pretend vulnerability. To the untrained eye, they may come across as confident leaders or empathetic friends. But these behaviors are not genuine. They are tools used to draw people in and keep them off guard. Behind the mask lies a very different reality. The psychopath is not interested in connection but in control. They observe others not to bond but to calculate. Every gesture, every word, every expression is a means to an end. What we interpret as kindness might be bait. What feels like closeness might be a trap. The performance is convincing precisely because it is rehearsed. And the better the performance, the harder it is for others to see the danger beneath. This raises an important question. How many times have we trusted a mask without realizing it? How often do we equate charisma with character or confidence with integrity? The danger is not just in being deceived by a psychopath, but in how easily we can be seduced by appearances. Our desire to believe in the good in others can become a weakness they exploit. But awareness changes everything. Once we begin to question the surface impressions, we become harder to fool. Once we recognize the difference between performance and presence, we protect ourselves. The mask may be ordinary, but the force behind it is not. And when we learn to see with clarity, we not only guard ourselves from harm, we also reclaim the power of discernment, the ability to see what is real even when it hides behind what looks familiar. Cracks beneath the mask. Though psychopaths are skilled at imitating normalcy, the mask they wear is not perfect. Over time, small inconsistencies appear. These cracks may not be visible to everyone, but for those who look closely, the signs are there. A moment of inappropriate laughter, an emotionless reaction to someone's pain, a story that changes slightly each time it's told. These moments can seem minor, but they reveal something deeper, something unsettling beneath the surface. One of the most telling signs is their response to suffering. Where others might show concern or sorrow, the psychopath may appear blank, amused, or irritated. Their inability to feel empathy cannot be hidden forever. Eventually, the mismatch between their words and their emotions becomes apparent. They may speak of compassion, but their eyes remain cold. They may offer apologies, but without the weight of regret. It is not just what they say that matters, but how they say it and what they fail to feel. Their stories often fall apart under scrutiny. When pressed for details, they may contradict themselves. When asked about past events, they may deflect or become defensive. The cracks in their narrative reflect the cracks in their persona. This is because their identity is constructed, not lived. They shape their image based on what they think others want to see, not from any internal truth. For those who sense these inconsistencies, doubt begins to grow. But doubt alone is not enough. It is easy to second-guess ourselves, especially when the other person is charming or confident. Many victims of psychopaths later describe ignoring their intuition, dismissing red flags as misunderstandings or their own insecurity. But the body often knows before the mind does. A chill in the air, a subtle tension, a sense that something just isn't right. Learning to trust these subtle signs is a form of inner awakening. It is the moment we stop believing the performance and start honoring our perception. The cracks in the mask are not flaws in our judgment. They are invitations to see more clearly. And in seeing clearly, we begin to free ourselves. Twisted words and deceptive gestures. Psychopaths are not only masters of manipulation, they are masters of language. But their words are not used to build connection or express truth. They are used to confuse, distract, and dominate. A psychopath may speak in circles, change topics, mid-conversation, or answer questions with unrelated remarks. This tactic is not due to confusion. It is a deliberate method of control designed to keep others off balance and questioning themselves. Their speech patterns often lack emotional depth. While they might imitate the structure of empathy or concern, Something always feels slightly off. The rhythm, tone, or timing is just enough to unsettle. Their language can appear polished, even poetic, but beneath the surface it lacks sincerity. It is style without substance, form without feeling. And when they are challenged, they may turn cold or defensive, shifting blame, or using wordplay to avoid accountability. In addition to words, psychopaths use their bodies to manipulate. They may use exaggerated gestures, calculated facial expressions, or too perfect eye contact. These physical cues are meant to reinforce the illusion of sincerity, but like their speech, their gestures are rehearsed. They are not responding to emotion. They are mimicking what emotion looks like. This imitation often works because most people instinctively trust emotional signals. The psychopath exploits this trust. Over time, these patterns of twisted communication can wear down a person's confidence. Victims begin to question their own memories, emotions, even their sanity. This is not an accident. It is psychological erosion, an intentional effort to destabilize. The more uncertain someone feels, the easier they are to control. Recognizing this manipulation is a vital step toward reclaiming one's voice. When we begin to notice how language is used to dominate rather than connect, we begin to hear more clearly. When we see that not every smile is genuine, not every touch is kind, we start to trust our own signals again. Truth becomes something we feel, not just something we're told. And in that awareness, we begin to rebuild the ground beneath our feet. The seed of numbness, born or made. The origins of psychopathy have long been debated. Are psychopaths born this way, or are they shaped by trauma and environment? While the full answer remains complex, research increasingly supports the idea that psychopathy has strong biological roots. Brain scans reveal differences in areas responsible for empathy, emotional regulation, and fear response. These differences are present from an early age, suggesting that some individuals are predisposed to emotional numbness long before any external influence. This does not mean environment plays no role. Like any trait, psychopathy may be influenced by upbringing, social context, or life experiences. But unlike many psychological conditions, psychopathy does not appear to be caused by childhood abuse or neglect alone. In fact, many psychopaths report relatively stable childhoods. This challenges the comforting belief that all cruelty is born from suffering. Sometimes the capacity for harm arises not from pain, but from absence, a void where conscience should be. Understanding this is difficult. We want to believe that everyone is capable of change, that beneath every act of cruelty lies a wound waiting to heal. But psychopathy confronts us with a harder truth. Not all brokenness is caused by damage. Some people do not lack empathy because they were hurt, but because they never developed it in the first place. This realization forces us to redefine how we think about healing and justice. It also invites us to reflect on our own nature. What makes empathy grow? What nurtures conscience? These are not traits we can assume will develop on their own. They must be modeled, cultivated, protected. In recognizing the absence of these qualities in the psychopath, we are reminded to honor and preserve them in ourselves and in those we raise. Where numbness exists, presence matters. Where absence dominates, connection must be restored. Ultimately, the question is not only why some are born without empathy, but how we choose to respond. Do we close off, become fearful, or hardened? Or do we choose to deepen our humanity in the face of its absence? The seed of numbness may be born, but the seed of compassion must be planted again and again. When the heartless rule the world, power in the hands of the heartless is a quiet catastrophe. Psychopaths who ascend to positions of leadership do not carry the burden of empathy, remorse, or conscience. This absence allows them to make decisions that harm millions without hesitation. They are efficient, calculated, and unconcerned with the human cost. While others struggle with moral complexity, they move forward with cold precision, driven not by service, but by control. In political systems, such individuals can rise quickly. They speak with conviction, promise change, and present themselves as visionaries. But their words are often masked, tailored to win trust while concealing a deeper agenda. Once in power, they consolidate control, silence dissent, and manipulate systems for personal gain. They do not see themselves as part of a society. They see society as something to dominate. This dynamic is dangerous not only because of who they are, but because of how easily people follow them. In times of fear, uncertainty, or crisis, a confident leader can appear like a savior. Many do not look deeper. They want protection, not truth. And so the psychopath thrives, not by hiding, but by reflecting back what people long to hear. The result is a pathocracy, a system ruled by the emotionally impaired. In such a world, cruelty becomes policy and manipulation becomes governance. Institutions meant to serve the public become tools of control. Fear replaces dialogue. Conformity replaces thought. Over time, even those who are not psychopaths begin to mirror the system that surrounds them. Compassion is seen as weakness. Integrity becomes dangerous. And yet recognition is the seed of change. When we begin to see these patterns, we awaken to the reality that governance without conscience is not stability, but slow collapse. We remember that leadership is not defined by charisma or confidence, but by care, humility, and responsibility. The world does not need more power. It needs more wisdom. And that wisdom begins when we stop admiring the mask and start demanding the truth beneath it. To recognize the predator is not to live in fear, but to live with clarity. The more we understand the mask, the more we value authenticity. The more we see the coldness, the more we cherish warmth. In a world where manipulation can wear a smile, our deepest protection is awareness and the quiet courage to remain human.